Getting laid off was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
One of the things that's come out of that obviously is your business. So where can people reach you at Pipeline if they're interested in your business?
Yeah, yeah. So if you need some piece of equipment and you can't find it off the shelf somewhere being made by, some company, and you need a custom piece of equipment, test fixture, automation, machine design, that's when to come to Pipeline. You can find us online at teampipeline.us. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Aaron Moncur, AARON MONCUR. And we also have a podcast that we do. It's called the Being an Engineer podcast on all the major podcast platforms. So a few places that you can find us.
Thanks, Aaron. And let's talk a little bit more about that. What is the Being an Engineer podcast? I think the name is generally pretty self-explanatory, but why should people in my audience that are early career engineering professionals or aspiring engineers listen to your podcast?
Well, we talk about some technical topics, but mostly it's a non-technical program. Uh, we talk a lot about communication and organization, time management, navigating corporate bureaucracies, which is funny because pipeline is not a corporate bureaucracy as well. But a lot of engineers have to figure out how to navigate that. So
Yeah.
we have guests on who talk about those things. Um, and just a lot of students find value, especially students, because before you actually become an engineer, you don't really know like what it is to be an engineer. And so we just talk about what it's like to actually be an engineer, right? Day to day, what's the work like? What are we doing? Another thing we that has been interesting for me that I didn't fully appreciate before is just how many different roles there are within the discipline of engineering. And so it's a great way to connect with people out there. Like a lot of the people that we have on our show are very approachable. You can find them on LinkedIn and connect with them. Um, you can learn about different companies out there that you might want to work for someday. You can learn about new technologies. We do talk about some of the technical aspects as well, and just kind of the behind the scenes stuff that you don't learn at school, but are really important for being a successful engineer.
Yeah, and as I was listening to your most recent episode with the test, I think it's Emma that was talking about their experience working as a in a test environment with engineers, and that was also very insightful as well. So plug for that as well. Listening to your most recent episode, I really enjoyed it. I think that people would enjoy it as well.
Thank you, thank you. There are a couple episodes in particular that if you just want to sample one or two, there's one by a gentleman named David O.H. He is an engineer at JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory with
Yeah,
NASA, and that's just a phenomenal episode. He was oh, I'm gonna mess up his title probably, but it was like the flight director for the Mars Curiosity mission. And so like he oversaw, a large part of that entire mission. And he talks about being on Mars time, living on Mars time for 6 weeks because they had to be awake when it was day on Mars so they could like guide the rover, right? And what is it? You like the Mars day is like 26 hours or something as opposed to 24 hours for us. So every day he was like losing 2 hours, and it was so he would be awake during the day for week one or two, but then like for week four and five he was awake during the night, and his whole family went on this like mission with him, right? They all were awake when he was awake, and he talked about seeing the rover land on Mars for the first time. He's in the control room like no one else in the world has ever seen this happen. And here's this rover that just landed on this alien planet, how many miles away. Really, really cool episode. And then another really neat one that we did was with uh, uh, James Hobson, the hacksmith. So for those of you who heard of the Hacksmith. He's kind of a YouTube celebrity. He does these really cool projects. He's got a whole company now. But they take like comic books and sci-fi movies, and they pick technology out of them, like a lightsaber, or Captain America's like was like a magnetic shield or something, or and they make them real, right? So they take these sci-fi technologies and they figure out a way to make them real, not exactly as you see them
Yeah.
in the movies, but they're close, right? And so just listening to how he kind of came to be who he is right now, the hacksmith, and all of the fun things that he gets to do is really neat. So those two, the hacksmith and David O, are two great ones to check out.
Thanks, Aaron. It sounds like career day at school, but for engineering people on steroids.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like honestly a phenomenal. I actually haven't listened to either of those episodes, so I've put them on my list for my 5:30 a.m. drive tomorrow morning. Definitely
Perfect.
going to listen to them. That's really exciting. And Aaron, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you are doing with your podcast and with your career, and also that you've taken the time to kind of share your career walk. Our mission here is to kind of similar origins, to help people that don't know what it's like to be an engineer, the journeys that you can take in your career with engineering, and how you can get into all these cool different roles, and how people got to being able to do those things, that these cool things that people are telling that they're doing on your podcast. So thank you so much for giving your time and sharing your story with my audience. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this segment of the Engineering Success Podcast. If you liked it, make sure to check out the other videos down below that are recommended to you. And if you really like the podcast, make sure to subscribe right down there in the middle. We really appreciate it. It's free to you and helps us a lot out. And last but not least, the best way to help the show grow is to comment down below. So leave your comment if you have any thoughts about this segment. Thanks.
I ain't chasing payments, still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries, thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify, they put me on the station.